Okay, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for being here again. We're again very happy to have this meeting again. We're going to call this meeting to order starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is right there. Everyone can stand and join me in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, because this is a public meeting, I'm going to ask one of the trustees to give me a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Support. Okay, thanks. All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Tuttle.
Actually, I'm going to keep that. That's going to go back here. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I think I have clicker control. I might be a little loud, sorry. Thank you, everyone, for returning. That was a great sign to see you all join us again, so appreciate you being here. I'm going to start with the objective of this meeting so everybody's aware of this. I will go into the details of how we're going to achieve this objective in a moment, but I want both the committee members as well as the public to know the objective of this meeting moving forward. So, as I stated on the screen, which is very little for me, but a little font, I hope it's bigger for you, but the objective of this meeting is to deepen understanding of the committee's identified priority projects, providing the context necessary for every committee member to make informed decisions about your individual priority list. What I do want you to know is you're going to hear comments, I presume, by public participation, as well as you might have other comments. We're going to stick to the priority list that's actually on your table. I'm not asking you to do anything with it, but there is 4 priority lists. There are 17 items included in that priority list. This will be the objective for you at the end of this evening. You're not doing it using paper pencil, so this is just so you can, in your mind, know what your end game is today. You will be prioritizing those 17 items from 1 to 17. Now the meeting will be some discussions amongst groups. We've had a group think in the last meeting, and in the end, this is individualized. Any ideas that come forth today, whether it be through public participation or in any other format, those will be considered at the next meeting, which I believe is on May 21st, and for consideration. So the objective, if you see the red line, the objective is that we're hopefully, by the end, if everything works correctly, we will have identified priorities with the individual list that get us to about 60 million. Everything else falls below the red line until next meeting, at which point anything from below the red line can debatably move above the red line if we then move something from above the red line below the red line. I gave you an example on the sheet. It says Project A. If Project A, for example, is elementary furniture, right now that's $8.5 million. If, for example, someone wanted something for $2 million from below the line to rise above the line, obviously we would have to reduce something from above the line. Furniture might be something that you choose to reduce. So you may go from 8.5 million to 6.5 million, which obviously reduces the scope of the furniture. Plant Moran can tell you how that's going to affect things. But the objective of the evening, and I'm going to reiterate, is we're all going to electronically, hopefully, but you see the list in front of you, so be thinking of this as we go through discussions, prioritize those items, and put them in, and hopefully we'll have a score for you. What scored the most, the highest points, because a 1 is actually going to be worth 15 points. You don't need to understand all that. But hopefully, by the end, you'll see individually how all 17 items were prioritized. So that's the objective of this evening. I wanted to share that before we move, and I'm going to turn the floor back over to Trustee Worden to share the next portion of the agenda.
Okay, we always have public comment at public meetings. We love that people come to comment, but I want to reiterate what Dr. Tuttle said, and that's that we're very glad that you're here and truly appreciate community input. But I'm going to give you a couple guidelines for what I hope happens during this meeting, because this is not a regular board meeting. It's a meeting that is here for the objectives that Dr. Tuttle laid out. While public comments are always welcome, today's bond advisory meeting is mainly focused on identifying and discussing priority projects that could be supported through the bond funding. Your voices matter, and what we hear today will help shape the next steps. But the goal for this meeting is to work together to figure out what projects should rise to the top. With that in mind, we hope that the comments can focus within these parameters. The regular board meetings are on the second and fourth meeting of the month, second and fourth Monday of the month, and of course, we always welcome comments regarding any topic at any time. As a reminder, the committee does not engage in dialogue with the public during the public comment section, but will be listening carefully in preparation for the May 21st meeting. Thank you for being a part of this committee. So now we will take public comments, and I don't know if anyone turned in slips.
No.
So you can just come. Anyone that wants to make a comment, just come up to the podium, and then as we do in our regular board meetings, we're going to limit comments to 3 minutes apiece. Does anybody want to make a public comment?
I do. Hi, my name's Matt Kale. I'm going to pretty much say the same thing I did last meeting. I thought last meeting was awesome, and I thank everybody for being here. I thought it was really well run. When it comes to prioritizing the projects, me as a community member and future prospective dad in the school district, I know that we have some enrollment issues in the district, and we have some therefore we have operating expenses issues in the district. And this money doesn't directly, can't go to funding the things that our operating expenses do. So when it comes to the red line of things above it and below it, I would hope that we're trying to somewhat prioritize any projects here that we think will help us with enrollment in the district, enrollment capture in the district, or reducing our operating expenses in the district. I don't know, I've sent some emails seeking advice. I hope the administration or Plant Moran can advise today about what projects would potentially reduce operating expenses. I always cite the boiler projects. I don't know if those actually will reduce operating expenses in the district, but if they did, I would encourage everybody to prioritize projects like that. I live in Grosse Pointe Park. I'm going to give a Trombley plug. I do think as expanding offerings in the district for preschool and things like that, I think that could help us in the enrollment and enrollment capture area. So, but this isn't about that. It's about prioritizing these projects. So again, I would hope that we could get advice from the administration of Plant Moran, and then everybody taking part could hopefully try to prioritize things that would help our enrollment capture, and or reduce our operating expenses in the district. I think that would just help us out all around. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to make a public comment? Go ahead.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ian Studders. I've got 3 kids and I live in the park. They'll all go through the public school system. So I'm here tonight because I want to ask for the committee to consider a couple projects for inclusion on the priority projects list. They haven't made it onto that list yet, despite my best efforts, but wanted to appeal directly to the committee tonight. So the Elworthy Field tennis courts are on property that's owned by the school district, and they are falling into disrepair. They are owned by the district. They're managed by the city of Grosse Pointe. And long story short, they're in somewhat of a purgatory because they're used by everybody in the community, and there's not a lot of funding from the district or from the city of Grosse Pointe to keep them in good shape, whether that's operating funds or capital funds to improve them. So they're cracked. They're not in good shape. They don't look good. They don't operate well. And also, I'd like to ask the committee to consider building a community building with public restrooms at Elworthy Field, which would service not just the varsity and JV tennis teams, but also Eastside FC, the public, the tot lot, probably visitors from the Little League, even though they have their own bathrooms on the other side that are not well known or always open. But it's a very common issue that there's young toddlers at the tot lot that have nowhere to use the restroom. or community members using the tennis courts. So just a quick overview of the issue. Our tennis teams at Grosse Pointe South are some of the most historically successful teams in the school. So the girls have 15 Division I state titles, the most in the state. I spoke about the tennis court condition already, which is unacceptable. Also, there's not really a plan in place to improve the tennis courts over time. So it's not as if we just need to be patient and wait for some well-designed capital plan to fund this work. There's no end in sight for the funding issues. So in addition to the cracked tennis courts, there's court lighting that doesn't work. One of the 16 bulbs on the existing 4 courts works. The water fountain hasn't been hooked up since COVID, and there's only seating for 12 spectators. So that's not the level of, I think, presentation that we want for a varsity sport that's so successful. I think anybody has to be honest that if the courts were anywhere else on the main campus, they'd be in better shape. Or if they were in Neff Park, which the city owns, they'd probably be in better shape too. So I'm asking the committee to consider these projects, about $2.8 million to resurface the tennis courts, add better lighting, and build a community building, depending on what type of scope you want. I think this would be a project that could be funded by public and private sources, foundations, individual donors. I don't think that the bond could pay for 100% of it, but I think that it should be included as an eligible project in the bond with inclusive language. So last thing, I'd just like to make an appeal that if the school district doesn't have a plan for the land, I think they should still partner with local groups and stakeholders. I've got letters of support from the Neighborhood Club, Eastside FC, the Mare Elementary PTO, the Little League, etc. I've had lots of good conversations with local stakeholders. They all want this project. We just need to be creative about how we get there, so I'm excited for that to be considered by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ken Prather. I am the middle school coach for the public school tennis team. So a group of us, we're trying to make a big push to speak to what Ian was just talking about, the proud tradition that Grosse Pointe has in tennis. Over the last 10 years really, it's been in a sharp decline, mainly because of facilities issues. Primarily on the indoor side, a number of club closures have caused the junior program that generated a lot of good talent in the area to really dissipate. It's really come down to a trickle. So these outdoor facilities really become a lifeblood. With our own program, we get to really gear up now in April, now that it's at least over 40 degrees and we can do something outside. So we're there in our mittens and gloves, but it works fine. So the Elworthy facility is very important to us. It's a huge lifeblood for our tennis. And you know, the priorities I would have for that, and consider that in your funding, would be the outdoor lighting. That's something that was a wonderful tradition for years. It gives so many more people a chance to play after work during the summer, continuing on into 10 o'clock at night even, playing under those lights. We used to be able to just turn a knob, put a quarter in, and you get a half hour worth of tennis. The community room and the bathroom would be a huge key, as well as the resurfacing. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Cobot, and I'm a resident of Grosse Pointe Farms. Just wanted to talk a little bit more, just real quick about the tennis. The Rotary Foundation calls the Tot Lot the Rotary Tot Lot, and they did a nice renovation several years ago, and they spent a lot of money, made the Tot Lot really nice, and they had a lot of extra money left over. And they had extra money, and they proposed to put bathrooms in, and because of the confusion between the city of Grosse Pointe and the Grosse Pointe public school system, this project was not allowed to move forward. I'm not asking for you guys for money, but it would be nice to develop like a scheme where the two groups could work together to provide the service. The Rotary was going to pay for it all, but it's just confusing. So if you guys could put working something like that out in your schedule, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Good evening, Kevin Nugent. Grosse Pointe's a very unique and special place, but it's not so unique and so special that we live outside of the norms for districts around Grosse Pointe. And so what I want to point to is that when you're doing all the prioritization of the things that the district needs, also consider enrollment and where we've declined in enrollment. And people will chalk up loss of enrollment to a number of things that maybe don't actually lead to the loss of enrollment. I want to just point to a few things. So if you're talking about comparable districts, Livonia, Birmingham, West Bloomfield, Farmington, Rochester, L'Anse Creuse, Lakeview, all of these districts from 2020 to 2021, COVID year, they all lost between 2.5%, and 5% of their student enrollment. Grosse Pointe lost over 7%. So we were an outlier when it came to that. Now, if you look at it, if it's just the COVID year and just that 7%, maybe we could chalk it up to being a mistake or an anomaly. But the following year, almost every district only suffered between a 1% and a 1.5% enrollment loss. Grosse Pointe suffered an additional 4%. So over 2 years, we lost 11% of our student enrollment, and other districts lost at a max 5%, with the exception of Birmingham. Now, our home prices are very comparable to the districts. If you look at all of the comparables, which I've done, we're very much in range. So it's not just home prices that are causing district enrollment decline. It's not just COVID, although the numbers might indicate, because there's enrollment loss, that it was COVID. But we also had a reconfiguration in the year that we lost so many kids in the year following that. And I think if you look at data from Platte Moran, you're also going to see a decline in enrollment from 4th to 5th grade. So I ask that when you guys are making your budget priorities, that you're also allowing yourself time to pivot, just in case numbers come in that would indicate that there's a capture that we could get with new features in our district that would allow more students to attend. So looking at ages 0 to 5 and so on. So it's not just COVID that we lost students. There's also other things going on, and so I think we get lost in the numbers of just that there are other things the district could be doing. So when you're prioritizing, please consider recapturing all the students that we don't get. It's not 96%. I know that's been thrown out there. There was more kids out there that we're not bringing to our school system, and that revenue source will stabilize teacher pay, stabilize programs, stabilize academics, arts, and athletics. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Greg Wolf. I'm a physical education teacher and swim coach in the district. I do want to talk about the pools, as I know that's always an issue that comes up. We use these pools, the middle school pools included, quite a bit. For example, in physical education, during second, third quarter, it is too cold to send a class outside, and we have 2 class periods where we have 2 classes in the gym at Pierce. I know there's some stress the same over at Parcells where they don't have the pool available. The only way I can really keep this, that I can actually teach and make it safe, is that I can't have 2 classes in the gym for extended periods of time. There's just not enough space. So we have some of those classes go down to the pool. We teach a lot of water safety, give the kids a chance to work out. We also have our special ed kids use the pool, and it makes a big difference in how they handle the rest of their day when they have that outlet and that therapy in the water. We have 2 swim clubs that spend a lot of money on rental of the pools, and some of the thought is if we close the middle schools, some of the after-school programs could get shifted over to the high schools, which are not really the right size, shape, or temperature for swim lessons and some of the other programs. And you'll also be kicking out programs that pay rent to the district without the district having to put a whole lot of money into it, as they provide their own coaches and safety and everything else. So I really want to see if there's, any way we can get Parcells Pool back up and running, especially with the community that it serves, our kids from Harper Woods that don't have the parks to learn how to swim. Back in the day, we taught a lot of kids how to swim at Parcells with an after-school program, and they're being denied that. And if you look at a lot of demographics on drowning and everything else, Parcells really needs to have some swim instruction for those kids. And I gotta believe there's some grant money, some bond money that we can use, some sort of donation money that we can get that pool up and running. At the very least, we have to keep the pools that we are using. And I know my pool at Pierce is an old pool and needs some upkeep. We have to keep those working. One, for our educational, with our physical education kids, for our special ed kids, and the after-school programs that are using them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Ara Harani, and I'm here to echo the support for the Ellsworthy tennis court renovation and bathroom installation. I'm a resident of the farms, and I have 3 kids. I'm a booster and supporter, in-kind supporter to the Rotary Club over there that did the tot lot renovation. And I was upset to hear about the stopping short of the bathroom situation, so I'd love to, again, just voice my support for that whole initiative. Restrooms, tennis court upgrades, and drinking fountain would be huge. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
My name is Coulter Powers. I am a resident of the Farms. I also served as the St. Paul girls tennis coach and have a freshman daughter who I just came from her tennis match at Berkeley to be here to voice my sort of support for the Ellsworthy project. I think there's a few things to consider above and beyond just the courts and their disrepair, but also safety issues when we have visiting teams, when we have baseball tournaments, when we have so many things happening, groups of people trying to cross the road to get to a bathroom facility who aren't familiar, stoplights, traffic, safety on the courts themselves. My daughter stepped in a crack yesterday at practice, or the other week at practice, rolled her ankle. It just shouldn't be that way for, first of all, any of our athletic facilities, but also, the team does have the most district titles. So it's something where I think support from both the school, the community, private, bond, whatever it may be in terms of supporting it. From what I've heard, it's just been not a lack of interest, but more a lack of coordination and getting all of the right people to sit down and figure out the plan forward. To me, that's more of an excuse as to why it hasn't happened versus everybody being in agreement that it should. So to me, it's about the groups coming together and putting that as a priority sort of above the line and getting everyone coordinated, which I've voiced to many people that I certainly play a role in helping. But just wanted to, voice my support for it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie Shield. I am a Farms resident and I have 3 kids. I am here also to voice support for the Ellsworthy project. As somebody who went through the high school program and played tennis at Grosse Pointe South, I can attest to the fact that the other schools that we played against did not have facility issues like we had at South. With the Ellsworthy courts, they've had cracks for years. We just went through a resurfacing relatively recently. Unfortunately, that did not do enough to address the foundational issues with the courts. So the cracks reappeared within about a year, and they continue to get worse with time. We need to come together as a community and coordinate these funding structures, as Coulter mentioned, to address the problem, because it is not an aesthetic issue, it is a safety issue for children and adults who are playing on those courts. So I would urge you to consider the Ellsworthy project for your bond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you to those who presented, and as I indicated at the next meeting on May 21st, we will discuss whether the Ellsworthy tennis courts move above the line or below the line. So thank you very much for that. I want to go over tonight's agenda. Oh yeah, I have that there, sorry. So tonight's agenda is going to run as follows. In a moment, I'm going to do all of the following. First, I'm going to review the timeline again with everyone as I did in the first meeting. Secondly, I am going to revisit your homework expectations. Hopefully you all did those. There will be a quiz, just kidding. All right, and then we're going to review the group priority list from the group activity that took place at the first meeting that we had. We will then have discussions about the IA building, pools, and the athletic facility that was discussed, a larger project in the tune of $15 to $25 million. Plant Moran's going to help me with that discussion. Then we have, and we're really on track time-wise, so I'm pleased to say that. So we will have an opportunity for an action item, and I'm going to explain that in a moment. If time permits, we'll go through a second action item, followed by the most important, which is the action item that number 3, which I just described for you at the beginning of the meeting, where you will electronically be ranking those, so be thinking of those items as we move forward in this agenda. I will then share, as we tabulate all of the priority lists. At that time, well, my tech team, Dr. Stanley, tabulates all of the, and Mr. Jagger tabulates the scores. I will share the objective for the next meeting, and then hopefully if all goes as planned and technology works as planned, and you're all able to do as requested, we will have results from today's survey before you leave today, and then that will subsequently be how we will start the following meeting. So I'm going to go through those items quickly, and my type A, part of my personality is type A, that I like to try to keep on time and try to respect all of your time to keep to the 2-hour time limit. So we're doing pretty well right now. Review the timeline. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this other than to say we're obviously at the second meeting, being April 9th. The only other thing I would like you to do is to tentatively put in your calendars a May 28th, Wednesday, May 28th date. Same time, same place as potentially our 4th meeting. Unfortunately, there just is not ample opportunities in June with graduations and all of the events that happened at the end of the school year to have a meeting prior to that June board meeting, in which I'm hoping, if all goes well, we will have language or recommendations to present to the entire board. Again, I want to revisit your homework. I want to say that I sent all of you, if you did not receive that, please put that on one of the cards at your tables. I sent all of you 2 documents. One was a Q&A that was subsequently updated, and I apologize for questions that were remiss on the first. Can you hear me in the back okay? You're good? Okay. I apologize for that, so we did send an updated, inclusive of all questions, albeit just today, I believe, or possibly yesterday. So if you haven't had an opportunity to look at those, please make sure to do so. I indicated in our first meeting that I would be going over those questions with you, but in an effort to expedite this meeting and to be respectful of your time, we did send those out in advance. And then second thing you should have received is the educational materials on, it should be 15 priorities list, and those are the 15 priorities that you see in front of you today. Those were determined by the first meeting when we asked you to rank order ideas as a group. So we've done the group, now we're doing the individual today. This is an example of what you should have received. Inclusive on those slides were Q&As pertaining to the particular issues, so if you didn't have a chance, for instance, there's a question pertaining to this particular priority, which is the south main entrance. Then I want to share with you the results from the group project that we engaged in the last meeting. So you can see, for example, I'm not going to read this all to you, you can see this on the screen, and this will be posted on our bond website subsequent to this meeting for everyone to see by the end of the week. But you can see the number of groups. There were 6 groups in that meeting. Tonight there are 8. There were 6 groups in that meeting, so you can see how many groups indicated that the Grosse Pointe main office should be included as a priority. In the group activity, 6 groups decided that. Then you can see all of the 5s. I'm not going to go through that, but there is a sum total of the 5s. Then you can see the 4 sum total, the 3 sum total, and then anything that was a 2 or below is also listed there. However, there are some in that category that we will be talking about tonight because we can't not talk about, for instance, the IA building. Are we just going to leave that to dilapidate, or do we need to put some kind of money into that? So that's a conversation that we will have later in the discussion. Any questions about that slide, or just understanding of that slide, not specific questions, but understanding how that slide came to fruition? All right, I'm going to turn to the next, which is what we just kind of talked about. So we will include the Elworthy tennis courts as a part of the discussion in the next meeting. And just to let the public know, Plant Moran will work on some monetary components of that. I heard 3 different components, 1 being the bathrooms, 2 being the tennis courts themselves, and 3 being the drinking fountain situation. And so we will come back with kind of an educational material on that for the next meeting to see, and it will be listed below the line, And then the group will decide. There will be more free flow of discussion at the next meeting, and this group can decide, once being educated on that, what priorities they want to, if they like how we stand as of tonight, or if they want understanding that not everything that everybody wants is going to be included. And I hope there are some compromises amongst the group as well. So I'm going to ask Paul Terrio from Plant Moran to come and help me with this slide in particular. So these are discussions about the field house, the IA building, and pools, specifically Parcells pools. I'm going to start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who knows much more in depth about these. So as I indicated, we can't just lose sight of the IA building. Obviously, it did not make it on the priority list. However, by virtue of that, is the group saying do nothing with that building. If you do nothing with it, then it just sits and deteriorates. So we need to discuss that, and if we choose, what amount of money do we want to put into that? Is it $500,000, and what does $500,000 get us versus $1 million, or is it zero? We're just going to let it sit there. And so that'll be a discussion of the group. Reminding the group that it is our task to make recommendations to the Board of Education, but the Board of Education ultimately will decide what goes on the bond proposal. So we are strictly a recommending group. Next, I want to just speak briefly of the pools. It was stated that there are several pools in the districts. All of our middle schools, of which there are 3, have a pool in addition to each of our high schools, which I just want to give a kudos to this community for this foresight to put pools and auditoriums and planetariums and stages when this was built. So a lot of thought went into the building of this district years past, and it's our job to hopefully maintain it, if not grow it. But the pool in particular, I wanted to clarify, the Parcells pool is not the issue, it's the structure of the space, particularly the ceiling space. Just to fix that structural issue so that anything can happen in that space, whether you reopen it as a pool or whether you fill in the pool and create like an esports area or a fitness area, or anything that we could decide, minimally $4 million is going to have to be put in there so that otherwise that space cannot be utilized in any capacity. So it's not $4 million into the pool, it's $4 million into the structure of that facility. And then I listed the athletic facility, and I'm just going to candidly tell you why. People choose, and obviously we are not a school of choice, but there are definitely people in our community that choose to go elsewhere for a variety of different reasons. I think that's really unfortunate because honestly, as I've shared many times, having been in education for 30 years, I don't think there's any better district than the Grosse Pointe Public Schools. I don't know why anyone would choose any place but the school district. That's just my opinion. But the athletic facility, I wanted to bring it up again to this group because there's nothing that really attracts people to come in our current plan. And what I mean by that is nobody says, wow, did you see Grosse Pointe has great classroom furniture? I want to choose that. Whereas people may say, hey, have you seen the athletic facility? Where that would be located, if that made it above the line, that is a point of discussion that would need to be had at a later time if you're interested even exploring that. And maybe it's not an athletic facility, maybe it's something else, the shiny objects that attract people. Unfortunately, people don't come because you have great hydronic boilers in your district. Necessary, absolutely, but that's not necessarily a selling point. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Terrio from Plant Moran to add anything that I may have missed.
Great.
Sorry,
Okay.
thank you.
So I'll try not to get too deep here, but I think a lot of you are familiar with the IA building over at South. It's an older building. It was built right around World War II, as I recall. In the last bond, we had money in to partially renovate that building, and when we were designing South, we stopped because we realized that what we were going to be able to do was not anywhere near the work that needed to be done. So that got put on pause. 7 or 8 different iterations later, we ended up doing a big utilization study for South and looked at a bunch of different options of what we could do with all the programs in that space, which eventually ended up getting moved over to the old aux gym and locker rooms into some beautiful new space over there. And now that building basically sits there mothballed. We need to do something with it. Leaving a building, that's attached to the bowl center, it's attached by the breezeway up on the second level to the main building. Just to leave that and do nothing, I do not think is a good long-term solution. So we have looked at a lot of different things. The easiest thing would probably be to demolish it and then patch the bowl center, patch the main building. But there are a lot of things in the basement of that building. There's a lot of building and grounds equipment. There's a lot of athletic equipment, things like that that would need a new home. So it would probably require building some sort of storage facility on site somewhere as well. So again, it's a complicated demolition. It's a very tight site, as everybody knows. Not a lot of room to work around and move around in there. There's probably some asbestos and things that need to be abated. So we've tried to budget some money, but I think we do need to do something with the IA building. We did talk at one time about renovating it, but as you look at the declining enrollment at South, there really isn't a huge need for that space, in my opinion. Others may have different, but that really is something that needs to be addressed one way or another. Gary, you have numbers, I think, in our packet for later on, or a slide later on, exactly what we budgeted for demolition. Yeah. Which I think was around a couple $1 million. Again, until you get into it and do all the environmental surveys and things, we don't know exactly, but it's somewhere around a couple $1 million to knock that building down and build some type of storage facility for things in the basement. The middle school pools, as Dr. Tuttle just mentioned, those, we were actually planning some sinking fund projects 4 or 5 years ago to do a new dehumidification system at Brownell and at Parcells. That's when we found some of the structural issues. And it was bad enough that the architect that was out there called me, like stopped in the middle of everything, called me and said, no one should go into that structure. And then we met with the administration and passed it along to the board, and that's why the pool was closed. So what's basically happened at your middle school pools, because they're 50 plus years old, is all that warm, humid air builds up. And in the old days, they used to just put an exhaust fan in the roof and blow all that air out, but really then you're wasting all that energy to heat the air too. So nowadays, and the mechanical code changes every 3 years, so it's changed 20 or 30 or 40 times since those were built. What we would do is put a new dehumidification system in, so you'd get rid of the moisture in the air, but you'd also keep the heat, so it'd be a lot more energy efficient. That's just the way that it would be designed under the current code. I think that was really the solution for Brownell and Parcells, and to be honest, that probably needs to be done at Pierce too. We know that the structure at Parcells is compromised. We think that there could be similar issues at Brownell and at Pierce that if they're not addressed, if that dehumidification isn't addressed, over time they could end up in a similar situation. We don't think it's as bad now, but it could happen over time if we don't address and get rid of all that warm, moist air. The other thing is, you know, that air has to be pressurized the right way. It essentially has to be a negative space so that you're not pushing the air out through into the structure, into the masonry, into the steel, into the roof. It has to really be pressurized and controlled the right way, which is why that dehumidification system is so important. We have numbers on that in another slide as well. The athletic facility, I know we had that on the list last time at a pretty broad range of 15 to 25 million. We've been having this same discussion with a lot of districts. There are a lot of these starting to happen, and you're going to see more and more of them over the next 5 or 10 years. We're working with 3 or 4 districts. In fact, I have a meeting next week where it's on the list of things we're talking about. When you have a 2 high school district, it's a little harder than if it's only a 1 high school district, because now you either, in theory, maybe need to build 2, or you need to put 1 centrally located somewhere, which I think is probably the better solution if we were to consider it. I know there was a group that was looking around at Brownell and Parcells, and I think a couple other locations. Those facilities vary pretty drastically. They could be a small field, let's say 60 yards wide or 60 yards long and 50 yards wide, with not a lot of extra space inside. You know, that might be more in the $15 million range. If you want a full field with a track around it, you know, depending on how many lanes, if you want batting cages and locker rooms and other ancillary spaces, those can get up into the 30 plus million. We have one client right now that's designing one that's probably going to be pushing $100 million. It's got a pool, I mean, it's, right? So there's no really high-end limit, but that 15 to 25 seems like about what would make sense. Also, the bigger the building gets, the more land you need. Obviously, we don't have a ton of empty land in Grosse Pointe in the points, but we think, you know, Brownell or Parcells may have enough to put a full-size field inside of a building at. So. And then I think the last one is just kind of other, obviously, the tennis courts. I actually went by there today and took a look, so we're happy to talk about those more next meeting. But there could be other ideas out there as well that people have, which is why we're going to, I think, put everything out for a vote a little bit of, you know, where people's heads are at. So, but happy to answer any questions about any of those 3 in more detail if needed.
Thank you. Thanks. And I just wanted, Andy, where did you end up for Schmelly?
We're here.
Okay. I just wanted Andy to speak for 1 minute about what your thoughts were at South, and because you have been looking at a potential athletic complex, and did you want to share a little bit about that quickly? Okay.
Want to use the mic or can you use your booming voice?
I have my big boy voice.
Very good.
So, when we talk about doing any kind of projects or anything, we never, at least I never focus on wants. I always focus on needs and what we need. For instance, our soccer program right now, we just counted today. They have 14 practices for 3 months on the turf, the whole season, because there's no turf space. We have one field, one space, and so it's tough when we don't have these spaces. And when we talk about things that we need a secondary space, whether it's centrally located within the district or wherever. We need another space for our teams to practice. At North and South both, we have teams that are practicing until 10 o'clock at night, and that's a bad look when we have teams that have to practice till 10 o'clock at night all the time. When we talk about retaining kids, I don't know. I can't promise you that making a facility is gonna keep kids. I can't make that promise, but I know from just where I stand, I know the kids that leave our district, that live within our district, and I know why they leave the district because we're talking to them, we're seeing them. They come in at our 8th grade walkthroughs, and then they go to De La Salle, and then they go to Liggett, and they see those facilities, and that's why they're leaving. Just from our standpoint, that when I talk to people, that is why we lose kids. So when we talk about retaining what we have in the district, we're losing 40, 45 kids every year to other schools because of facilities. And then that's not even talking about the people that we could have moving into the district because of the facilities that we do have. So retaining kids obviously is a big part of what we want to do. When we talk about an indoor facility versus an outdoor one, again, we talk about cost effectiveness. An outdoor turf lasts 7, 8, 9 years. Indoor turf, because of the no UV, lasts 20 years. It's an investment that's well worth looking at and taking a hard look into what the needs are of the district, and what type of facility would make those, needs a reality. And again, because of these new structures, and you can build them extremely efficiently, extremely effectively. Where again, solar power and everything. I have a lot of thoughts.
I said 1 minute, Andy. We're working. Not a math teacher, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'm kidding. You did a nice job.
No, okay.
And he was speaking on behalf of the whole district. Obviously, South is where he serves as the athletic director, but passionate about athletics and extracurriculars. What?
Can I have one more thought too? I know, so this conversation comes up with a lot of districts. Another thing that has been happening a lot is not necessarily indoor practice facilities, but second turf practice fields. I've got probably 10 different clients that either just put those in, so not just the main football field and the baseball and softball, but a secondary practice field where the drainage is a lot better and it's just a space for a lot of different people to use. So I think I know we're tight at North and South, but there probably is some room to do something like that. Again, it might not be a full-size field, but it could be a partial field. If that's something in the middle, maybe it would help.
Great. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. Since I live and die by a stopwatch, I will keep it to us. Somebody time me. The group that talked about, another field house, that's me. Okay, and I've been studying this since January of 2020. 1,300 hours and probably a dozen facilities visited, ADs and principals and potential donors. This is a massive project, and this community, I'm so excited to see that it's at least on the board. But the community needs to take its time, discuss it thoroughly, make sure that we know what we need, as Andy was saying, and what we want, so that we take it in the correct direction. It is beyond the scope of this committee to get into those kind of details. What I would suggest is that, and I'm happy to facilitate this, to add to my body of knowledge, anyone from this group that would like to participate in yet another committee, that's what we need, is more committees, to get a proper discussion going so that we can identify exactly what's best for the community. If we can identify any funds from this bond issue, it might be to set some money aside for a field house study, help me out, a feasibility study, thank you very much. Look at that, 59 seconds on the nose.
Nice job.
So happy to lead the discussion. I think the best this committee can do is set money aside to make it a proper study and to then decide together what's best for the community. And again, happy to facilitate that.
Thank you, Mr. Lazar. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Dr. Bishop, who's going to explain to you your first action item. We're doing really well on time, so I suspect we're going to have a second action item, which will mirror the first one he's going to talk about, followed by the third action item, which will be the prioritization of those. So with no further ado, your very own Dr. Bishop.
Thank you very much. I'll be quick because you can tell Dr. Tuttle is a very stickler for time. So we are reaching our time for the evening where it's time for us to extend our voices to our top priorities. So we're going to have a chance where we're going to have what's called a group advocacy session, right? I want to say advocacy and not debate. We are not asking each and every one of you to debate what your top priorities are. We're asking for you to advocate what you feel like one of your top priorities are. So for us to be able to do that effectively, I think it's important for us to have some ground rules, okay? So, of course, respect all voices that are also in the room. Make sure that we advocate, but we are not debating. Make sure we are assuming positive intent. Do not hurt your neighbor. Use data and facts in your discussion, and please make sure you stay engaged. And you also may have some employees at your table who may be giving you some insight or maybe sharing their stories. So please keep the information that they're sharing with you. Okay? Any questions before we get started? We do have 10 minutes. I'm going to try to keep you on track. If we do well within our time, I'll reach out to Dr. Tuttle and see if we can do the second activity. At that point in time, I'll ask you to come back, and I'm going to tell you exactly what your directions are at that time. Any questions before we get started? Once again, I also want to let you know, if you do have a question about something, feel free to raise your hand. We do have experts that be walking around. When I say experts, I mean we'll have Ben Matson. We also will have Plant Moran who can come around and be able to answer any of your questions. Now is a great time. If you have a question or you have a wondering, for you to get that question and answer at this point in the meeting. That way, when we get to the very end, you can vote on your top priorities. That is definitely a non-negotiable for us. Any questions? All right. Yes.
I just want to it's a clarification. For North, Cooper Square is listed as 750 million. Is that supposed to be 1,000?
Yes, it's definitely not million. Thank you for catching that. That would not be on the list. All right. Can we go ahead and get started? All right. We're done at 7 o'clock. Make sure everybody has 2 minutes. Make sure you monitor your airtime. Do not be like me. Thank you. No, we have no wonders, but noticing that nobody got into any pretty heavy debates, so it's good. I appreciate you following the rules. Good job. Now we're getting ready to go into part 2. Okay? So part 2, we're going to do what everyone does not like to do, which is move. Okay? So here's what I'm going to have you stand up right now. I'm going to have you gather all of your things, including your name tag. You will notice in the right corner of your name tag, you should have a number. All of our tables are now numbered. So you're going to take all your items with you, because this is where you will be for the rest of the evening, to the table that matches your number on your name tag. We do need the name tags back, so do not draw on them, do not throw them away. And you got about 20 seconds to get there. Thank you.
We're doing well on time, thank you. This was a very respectful room, lots of civility, thank you, that was awesome. I'm going to bring you back together for activity number 3, which is really the closing activity. So, a couple things before we give you the QR code, because we know that you'll scan it right away. So, in teacher mode, I know I have to give you the directions first. You are going to be tasked with putting 17 items, the ones on the list. This is going to be done electronically, so please don't use those sheets of paper. Those are only intended if somebody's doesn't work and we have to manually do it. You're going to put them in order from your first priority down to your least. You're going to have approximately 15 minutes to do that. We ask that when you do that, you consider a number of things. One, we do not want you to consider the cost, because that cost may change depending on if we piecemeal something, as I indicated, the furniture to begin with. So please take that out of the equation for now. But we do want you to consider these, oops, I'm not sure what happened.
I did that.
Oh, So we go back to that slide, please. Thank you. The two things indicated. One, I believe that everyone in this room wants to advocate for the passing of this bond. If I'm wrong, don't speak now. But I'm going to assume that you all do, which means that we need to position ourselves with projects that entice everyone to vote for this bond. Which means that you don't want everything on one side of the district. You don't want everything athletic versus fine arts versus academia. You need to consider all of those things when you start to prioritize. Because if the bond isn't passed, nobody gets what they want, right? And I know that, I'm going to say again, and I appreciate everyone on their questionnaire, when they submitted your application, you said that you would be okay if not all your projects were included on this. I'm going to hold you to that. So please, when you're tasked with this, please consider those things moving forward. In a moment, Dr. Stanley, our Assistant Superintendent in the back, I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to show you how to scan a QR code and how to move these items and slide them up. And he's going to do it with candy, right?
I am.
That's awesome. Because we tested this on kids.
Snacks.
To make sure this all worked. And snacks, sorry, not candy. Okay, snacks. My snacks are candy, but okay, so then he's going to come up and show you. If you do not feel comfortable doing it on your phone, he's going to give you a QR code. He's also going to give you a URL that you can put into your phone if you don't feel comfortable. There are people around that can help you with the QR code. And we also have some laptops. Brian Yeager in the back has laptops, so if you don't feel comfortable doing it, please go to Brian Yeager. We are going to ask you for your name. Your name will not be displayed for this group, so it will be anonymous for the group, but we as administration will know your name. And the reason I ask that to be included is that if I have a question why everyone voted for X, but this random person who I may call you and say, hey, can you explain your thinking here just so I know? Not that we're going to change anything, but for my knowledge base, is there something we need to be concerned about or what else the case may be? The other thing I want to share with you before I turn this over to you, because you're going to have 15 minutes to complete this, is remember that there are index cards on your table if you have further questions, and we will do similarly to what we did last time, where we'll collect all those, Plant Moran will take them, they'll put them in a document, and we hope to send them out before the next meeting. We'll also send out a Google form like we did last time, so if you have a question subsequent to this meeting, you can certainly ask it at that point. So, Dr. Stanley? Oh, yes.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
and just maybe offer a clarification?
Yes.
So at a couple of groups, and I've been asked this question a few times, furniture on the list, and to help clarify what does that mean. And so talking with some administrators in the room and also teachers, for the group to understand what that looks like. And when we talk about what our kids sit in 8 hours a day, I would say that we would not as adults want to sit in many of those chairs or desks. And so that is what that furniture looks like. Does it have to be that dollar amount? Maybe not, but it's not the glamorous, bouncy balls that we're talking about. It is the collaborative seating that impacts instruction that our kids are doing. And so I guess with as many questions that we got, or this group right here, people are asking what does that mean? So help clarify that. So.
And perhaps we can, on the slideshow, there's that piece that talks about furniture and shows a couple pictures to give examples, so we can put that up.
And then also from a teacher perspective, we're also hoping that we get some upgrades too.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so this is not the time to advocate. We had 2 action items for that. Is this a question or an advocacy?
It's a question.
Okay.
You said rent these without concern for cost?
Correct. Because, and there is a reason for that, because we could piecemeal something. So we just want to know, rank order what's priority to you. So when we talk at the next meeting, let's say only 4 things make it above the red line, but it's all the furniture, hypothetically, at a sum total of, I don't know what the furniture sum totals to, but then we can have discussions of, hey, maybe we don't want all new furniture, we absolutely want teacher furniture, that was for you, Taryn, you're welcome. That's when the next meeting will be a lot of open discussions. Pretty much the whole meeting will be filled with open discussions about that. Okay. Other questions about what you're being asked to do? Not advocacy. All right. So Dr. Stanley, I'm going to turn it over to you to explain, and then we will deliver the QR codes and time you for 15 minutes.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. So this really should be rather simple. no fault if it doesn't work very well with you. We'll be able to help you out. This is just a really quick example of what we're asking you to do. But as Dr. Tuttle stated, you are going to be rank ordering all of the items that you've been discussing these past couple of meetings. So we're not just asking you to rank your top 5, we want you to be able to rank your top 17. Because that's going to be helpful as we start to crunch some of these numbers. So for example, the survey that you're going to see looks exactly like this. And I actually just tested this out with a group of high school kids yesterday. We asked them to rank order their favorite snacks. And so every single person, when you log into this, they're not going to be in the same order. We do that purposely, right? Because we don't want to create any bias by any means. But what you can do, and you can do this on your phone, you can do this on a laptop too if you would like, all you really have to do is just move these items down. And as you start to move them, you'll also see that there's a number tied to all of these. You actually have 2 ways of doing it. You can point an arrow down, but I will honestly tell you, I think it becomes a little annoying, as you'll see, because like Cheez-Its continue to go down there. Just in case you were wondering, this was a tutorial class of high school kids. Chocolate chip cookies were the #1 answer. I couldn't believe that it wasn't Sour Patch Kids, because that's really the only true answer. What's really important, though, is when you are finished, guess what button you have to hit? Do you see that button that says done? You need to hit that done button. That's extremely important. I'm also going to let everybody know there are 29 people that are taking this survey, and so there should only be 29 results in that. If I have 37 results, I feel like we might have gotten something confused, okay? Any questions before we go ahead and take this? I'm going to walk around and I'm going to give you the QR code that you can do this off of your phone. You also have the ability to do this on a laptop if you would prefer to do that too.
Could you go back to the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back to that.
Give you till 7:40 to complete with what you can do QR code. We'll give you about 20 minutes. This is similar to what you heard at the beginning. So we will be reviewing the priority list that will be established hopefully in a moment. If all goes well, you'll get to see that. Just so you know, somebody asked, isn't the lowest score a top priority by virtue of receiving 1? But the program converts a 1 into a 15 and so forth. So it will be the highest score will be the #1 priority as identified by the group of individuals. The second thing is there are 2 individuals who are not here today. They will not have an opportunity to prioritize at this point. So we're going to review the priority list when we start. We'll start engaging in discussions and make necessary adjustments before finalizing the priorities for inclusion in the bond proposal. The final list will be structured with a clear delineation. Priorities totaling $60 million will be positioned above the line, while all other items will be positioned below the line. The group will need to determine whether they are satisfied with the current allocations or if adjustments are needed, such as reducing scope of items above the line and moving items from below the line to above the line and vice versa. This could involve reallocating funds by adjusting specific line items. For example, as I said in the beginning, reducing the furniture budget to $2 million by $2 million and moving something in the $2 million above the line. In the interim between now and the next meeting, I do think we have the Elworthy tennis courts that need to be have some costs associated with, yes, and hopefully we'll have that prior to the meeting that we can send out so that you will have that information. That will obviously be positioned below the line as we meet, and then we'll have some open discussions. So that's the majority of that meeting will be respectful and cordial discussions, and that we will hopefully, the goal will be that we will hopefully end that meeting with $60 million worth of projects above the line that then will be the recommendation to the Board of Education. Any questions about how that meeting will run? All right, I'm going to turn to my tech team and see how much more time they think before we see the results. That's because that's all we're waiting for at this juncture. I want to commend all of you. We obviously worked much more quickly than I thought, as it's only 7:40, so now we're just waiting on tech.
If you just all stare at us, it'll be a lot quicker, I promise. Just stare right at us.
It's your fault for not bringing this. I was going to say, if you had cookies,
could have done that.
The question in the group? Yes, John.
Yeah, I've heard a number of comments at the tables, and I wish this had been on the list for us to look at.
Okay.
And I know we talked briefly beforehand, and you said that that was going to be able to come into the next meeting.
Yes.
And could you describe a little bit more how?
Yes, good question, and thank you for asking me that. So if there is something that you would like to be investigated, you can put those on your cards as a question, like, can you please let us know approximately how X, Y, or Z will cost? And we can bring that to the table at the next meeting below the line, and then it will serve the exact same positioning as anything else that was. Does that answer?
Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Others?
If something is above the line, but it's ranged on this list, like IA buildings, 0 to 10 million.
Yep.
How are you going to value it above the line?
So that's going to be the discussion that Plant Moran is really going to have to be instrumental in the discussion. So if we say, hey, we want to spend X amount on the IA building, $1 million. What does $1 million do for the IA building? Are we okay with that, or do we think we need to throw $2 million at it? And then that will be the discussion that'll happen, and Plant Moran will have to be in a position to kind of give us ballpark figures. Obviously, there are a lot of things that come into play with bond proposals, and one of them is, no surprise to anyone, but the cost of things may change between now and when a bond passes. So what we think we could get today, possibly, they're ready? Okay. Or they get tomorrow. But to answer your question, that's how that would occur. Other questions before we look at the results? Okay, before you show the results, as I indicated, these are the top priorities of the individual. And we're not going to show you what's above the line or below the line tonight. We'll calculate that and bring it back, but it will be based on this prioritization. I am not going to say anything further after this, so you can look at it and peruse it at your leisure, or leave if you wish after this. But I am going to ask you if you would please leave your name tags on the tables. We will collect those for future meetings. Anything else for the good of the order before I check out? I really want to sincerely thank you. I thought everyone did a really nice job this evening, and I appreciate everybody's input, including our public participation. All right, drum roll.
Let's go. Go ahead.
Let's see if we can do that. Is that any better? Let's see a few more. How's it?
If you want to take a picture of it, so you have it to look at when you get home, you're welcome to do so.
That's right.
You'll email this to me.
Yes, yep, and so the presentation will be. Like I said, I have nothing further, so you're free to go whenever you like. Thank you.